Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the cEDH cast. My name is Ian, and with me as always is my co-host Braden.
Hello.
On this week's episode, we are finishing out our M21 set review for the competitive EDH format. But before we get into that, we have to shout out a patron. Braden, takes away.
Right. So our fresh patron is a official patron named Frankly Proven. Thank you,
Woo.
Frankly, or Proven, whichever you prefer, for being a patron. They just became a patron very recently, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, all the patrons are really appreciated. We know times are tough right now, but any support can really help the podcast grow and get better.
Yeah. Actually, this is a great example of this. If you're listening to this, you might not know this, but we're actually recording a video version of this episode. We might not have been supposed to mention that in case everything goes up in flames. We end up not releasing it. But just so everyone knows, we tried. Right. So I guess we'll find out how that went.
Yeah, so jump over to youtube.com and look up the cEDH cast, and you'll be able to find that there.
Yep, we just hit 1,000 subscribers just today after I shilled on Twitter. So I'm very excited about that. This also means we have way more work ahead of us because we promised to do an edited gameplay video for hitting 1,000 subs. So we're going to have to plan that out eventually. Ian and I are figuring that out. So thank you for all the support. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being patrons. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's greatly appreciated, and we have some fun patron goals on the way. So we'll see what happens.
All right. So if you are seeing the video version of this podcast, you can probably already guess what the topic
what
of
our
it
first
is.
card is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are going to be discussing the newest, well, probably the newest set. There's also Jumpstart, but what's the set that was most recently?
The real set, and not the thing being released next to it.
Yeah. However that works. So yeah, we're talking M21. TLDR. So
this first card is a Braden special. I think it is completely unplayable, but we'll let him talk about it.
All right. So you may think this is a 3-2, but in reality, this is a 4-3. Something you should be thinking about is anytime this goes into combat, it's doing combat as a 4-3. So
you should probably read the card.
Oh,
This is Garrix
Sorry,
Harbinger.
You attacked me, and I just had to defend my takes. I'm sorry.
So this is 2/2 black, legendary creature, human warlock. Other creatures get -1/-1, and it is a 3/2. Now, one thing that I recently realized about this card is it just says other creatures, not your opponent's control. So I genuinely despise this card, but Braden, I would love to hear your takes on this.
All right, so everyone knows I love dork decks, which means I respect cards that make my deck sad. This is a very powerful effect. It may not seem as powerful as I'm saying it is, but it is effective to just a permanent pyroclasm on the field often. Sure, your Tymnas will survive through it, but the thing you're playing Pyroclasm isn't Tymna. It's really the Mana Dorks. You're trying to really deny them acceleration that they're getting for so cheap and so efficiently. And this card does that. Now, sadly, the actual threat is not that efficient. But you can play this in a Tymna deck because Tymna survives it, which is pretty sweet. It's absolutely insane in combat because it is effectively a 4-3. So this just crushes Thrasioses. This would trade with a Linvala. You can think of it that way, because the Linvala becomes a 2-3, and this is a 3-2, so it'll trade. So that's something you have to really think about here. Is that it really warps the combat math. Yeah. For example, this will just smash through a Seedborn Muse.
You know what? It won't smash through. An attacking Bruce Tarl.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just being silly. Yeah, that is a specific corner case. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the powerful thing about this card is that it gets rid of blockers, or at least chump blockers. It makes blocking really inefficient, and I think that's very powerful in decks that are trying to play Tymna with other bears. So like I can see this as like a Silas Wren type situation where like you have a Silas
Hmm.
Wren and a Timna, and you don't play any dorks, but you are playing like some bears in your deck, or
Yeah.
creatures that you want to die. So like if you play a what's the creature that when it dies you return an artifact to your hand?
Mirror Trigger?
Yeah, so like if you play Mirror Retriever, it'll just immediately die. It'll actually uh, you'll immediately get the trigger if you wanted to do something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know if there's a lot of situations where you want creatures to die immediately, but this card does do that, and I think it also just messes with combat in such an efficient way that it's very powerful.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, let's go to the next one. All right, this one is this one's a meme.
Yeah, so the next card I put in here, and this is really going to be enjoyed by the YouTube audience, but it's Goblin Wizardry. And the only reason this card is here is because that is the best art,
He's
maybe of all time.
he's got some fiery projectiles.
Yeah, it's a fart. It's a big fart. It's a big fart on a card, and I love it. That's all I have to say. We're good.
Yeah. All right, next one up. Can't really argue with any of that, so we'll just go to the next one.
Yeah.
All right, Garrix Harbinger. There's been a lot of
So
discussion on this card. This is actually like a card people are pretty interested in.
Yeah. So for 1 and 2 green, it is a creature beast, hexproof from black. So for those of you that weren't around when that sort of became a thing, basically means it can't be targeted by black spells. And whenever Garrix Harbinger deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may reveal a creature card or Garrick Planeswalker from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. And it's a 4/3. Now,
Yeah,
Braden and I had the exact same reaction to this card, which was we'd rather it had trample.
yeah.
And
If it had trample, I think this would like almost be a consideration. I'm not sure it really would be
mhm,
still. I can't see many
yeah,
situations where you're like, oh, I need to go dork, land, Garrix Harbinger. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
it's not very exciting.
not really at all.
If it had haste and trample, probably pretty
Yeah,
good. It's probably too
yeah,
good
it'd
for
be very
standard
good.
at that point, so probably
Right,
won't ever
right.
happen. Um,
Yeah.
the fact it doesn't hit lands is like really the killer for me.
Hmm.
If it hit lands and creatures, then it's like almost always going to hit. It's always almost going to be card advantage.
Right, right, right.
Not doing that means that like it's very like rarely card advantage. Like for example, I'm thinking of medium
Hmm.
green. Medium green, we play 21 creatures right now. Nah, it's not worth it.
And even in like aggro green decks where you are, playing a lot of green creatures and like things to hit off of this, it's like, do you really want to play a 4/3, then wait a turn to maybe hit and not trample through? Like that's rough. That's
Yeah,
just real rough.
I think also the other thing you have to consider is that creatures aren't like most creatures people play are pretty bad. So like
Hmm.
if you look at Paco, uh, Paco plays 10 creatures and they're all bad. Like
Yeah.
there's Dockside and Gilded Drake and the rest are bad. And we play Gaia's Cradle. Like so most decks that are playing Gaia's Cradle are probably playing the same amount of bad creatures, which is about 10. And then there's like
Yeah.
cards like Fable Elder that some decks might be playing. That's also a card you really don't want to hit off of this. Um, I think you'd rather be playing a Fable Elder instead of this card. Like
Yeah. And yeah.
in our format, card advantage and mana advantage are tied pretty closely to each other. And this card is
Yeah.
like selective card advantage on a card type that isn't even that powerful.
Yeah.
Um, it does like weird
And the
tempo
thing,
things. I don't like it.
and the thing is, it's like I play Evolution right now, which is like a deck revolving around creature combos. And even then, I just would never slot this in. So it's like,
Yeah, the 3 mana you
I don't
can't
know.
even like play it on turn 2 or turn 1.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't play it
Yeah.
on turn 1 off of like a Nox Diamond.
Right.
Maybe if it was like if it impulsed every time and was like a 2 mana 2/1 or something, or
Yeah.
2/3, I don't know. This card just has to be broken for it to be good. No, it's just not
And it's
broken.
just not.
It's just like
Yeah.
a too good for standard 3-drop. Doesn't quite make the cut.
Yeah. Let's move on.
9 lives. We got that
Okay,
sick
nine
meme
lives.
tech.
So this card is well. Let's read the text first. So it's 9 lives. It's an enchantment for 1 and 2 white. It has hexproof. If a source would deal damage to you, prevent that damage and put an incarnation counter on 9 lives. When there are 9 or more incarnation counters on 9 lives, exile it. And when it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So when people saw this, they immediately went to Solemnity and damage prevention combos, but it's just not. We wanted to talk about this because it's just not good enough. There's been a lot of chatter around hypothetically playing it, and it's just not there.
I'd like to address some of the reasons this card's really bad.
Yeah.
So first of
Go for
all, it doesn't say you don't lose the game from having less than 0 life. It doesn't do the Angel's Grace thing either. So you can't cast Ad Nauseam into this. It's pretty bad. Additionally, there's a 1-minute instant called like Vault Scourge or Vault from the Vault.
Spoils of the Vault.
Spoils of the Vault that says you lose life, but it's basically like a demonic consultation.
Yeah.
But you lose life for every card you reveal, so in our format it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Because it says loss of life, 9 lives didn't really do anything with it.
Right.
It doesn't prevent you from losing the game if you like have 0 cards in deck and draw. It does. It really only thing it prevents is combat damage, really, or damage like if you were trying to. You had some card that does like 1,000,000,000 damage to each player. 9 lives would be fine. The problem is there just isn't anything really. All
like
the cards that are broken by these types of effects care about you going to negative life. They don't really care about you taking damage. And this card fails to do that.
It's for our format, yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, because of the way the wording is on the second or third ability, it says when there are 9 or more incarnation counters on it, exile it. That's not a trigger that is triggered by putting on the 9th counter. It's a trigger put on at whenever state-based effects are checked. It'll check for that to see if there's 9 counters on it, and then, or at least before anyone gets priority. I'm not sure if it's state-based, but before anyone gets priority, it is going to check every time to see if there's 9 counters on it. And once there's 9 counters, it gets exiled. If you stifle that, it'll just happen again. So you can't even like stifle it by like hitting the 9th trigger and be like, got him, or see or sundialing or something in response to it. It doesn't work. You'll just die in the upkeep of the following turn. So this card is so difficult to break, and that makes it bad.
Yep. We're done. Get it out.
All right. Speaking of ending the turn.
Yeah, let's talk about discontinuity. So this is 3 and 3 blue, and you might be hearing that and wonder what. This is a blue instant. As long as it's your turn, this spell costs 2 and 2 blue less to cast. So for those paying attention, if you cast it on your turn, it only costs 1 generic and 1 blue, and it says end the turn. Okay, so time stop got an upgrade.
Yeah, a pretty big upgrade at that.
Huh?
A pretty good upgrade at that.
Yeah. So the places to break this, we've talked about cards like this before. Final Fortune, Warrior's Oath, Last Chance. They are all 2 red. They are instants for 2 red that say take an extra turn, you lose at the end of that turn. Now with cards like Angel's Grace, Discontinuity, or Seer's Sundial, Sundial of Infinite, you can end the turn, therefore never placing that you lose the game trigger on the stack. This is just another one of those effects, so it's worth mentioning in that sense.
Sure. This card's interesting with cards like Song of Creativity. It's also a counterspell. It may not look like a counterspell, but it is a 6-mana counterspell. And it's not really a 2-mana counterspell because, like, how often are you like ending your turn?
Ending your own turn, like
it's not a protective counterspell, at least, unless you're using it to protect your creatures from a removal spell, or
right. Because if something's on,
like what you can do is like you go to end step, your opponent casts a Vampire Tutor, and you're like, no, I'm going to end the turn. And that'll exile the Vampire Tutor, but you just kind of did that, like...
Nothing. Yeah, yeah. So the worst part is like if you can't even use it to fight a spell in the stack. So say you're trying to resolve a Seedborn Muse and you go to resolve this to fight over the stack when your opponent tries to counter it, it won't work because it will clear the Seedborn Muse off the stack as well. So
yeah, and you can't even do like really because of the way ending the turn works. You can't even do super cute stuff with it because it exiles itself. You'd have to do like the Narset's Reversal trick where you like Narset's Reversal the card back to your hand and then the copy resolves and you still have the discontinuity in your hand. But like there are so many good combos that do that. So like there's like better Narset's Reversal cards. Like
if I'm gonna loop with Narset's Reversal, I was gonna say I'll take an extra turn instead. Yeah. as opposed to ending mine.
So yeah, I not impressed. It's fascinating. It's an odd card. It's
odd. It's nice design space.
Yeah,
but...
it's if they'd worded it in differently, so it costs an additional 4 to cast during your opponent's turn, so you can do the Ice-Crown Scepter thing.
Yeah,
you could theoretically be like have a Ice-Crown Scepter with the extra turn spell under it, with a copy artifact of the Ice-Crown Scepter with discontinuity under it. But you can already do that with the Seer Sundial.
Or Angel's Grace on an Ice-Crown Scepter.
Yeah, like there's just so many options now for that.
Totally.
So, but you can't use 9 lives. So think about that.
Boom, boom, boom. Get those kitties out of here.
All right.
This one's real. Let's talk about Ghostly Pilferer.
I love this card.
It is a Spirit Rogue for 1 and a blue. It's a 2/1. When it becomes untapped, you can pay 2 of any color and draw a card. When an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, you draw a card. And, as if that wasn't enough text, you can also discard a card to make it unblockable this turn. This card's insane, right?
Yeah, this card's busted.
Like
this card is so good. It's ridiculous. I love it. I don't want it to ever change. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We have Draenith Magistrate, right? Card is proven to be very powerful.
Totally.
This card's like Draenith Magistrate, except you cantrip.
Yeah.
So instead of saying no, you cantrip. And that's not bad. That's like pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
As a second copy of Draenith Magistrate, because come on.
Right.
We're not cutting Draenith Magistrate for this. But a second copy that cantrips instead, very powerful. And in some situations, it's just important to be able to have those options, like a toolboxy Neoform deck. Like I'll Neoform into Draenith Magistrate sometimes to like shut out the table. But sometimes I'm a little late. One of the decks already got under. And I don't want to shut out my other opponents because I want them to be able to interact with the other player. What I do is I get Ghostly Pilferer. And then that lets me go into like a Tymna plan because I can give it unblockable. I can pay 2 to untap it. It's not activated ability to untap when it untaps, so it gets through Curse Totem. The unblockable is an activated ability though, which kind of sucks. But if they're playing Curse Totem, they probably don't have blockers, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So I love this card. It has so much text.
Also, just like that. So the middle chunk is so good. But like, also the top part isn't bad. Like, if you're in a bad position, you will happily pay 2 mana to draw a card.
I play Training Grounds, so I get to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I play bad cards, so my good cards can do what that does. You know? So I'm fine if see this pesky Mana Crypt? We're just going to turn that off so I can draw a card during each turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. We're good with that. We can do that here. That's a fine trade. So
yeah.
I think Ghostly Pilferer is nuts. I'm going to slam it and jam it. It might not be perfect, but for example, I play Paco, and this makes every time I cast a spell off Paco a cantrip, which is rough. So it's not
for your opponent,
rough.
yeah, because it only triggers on opponents. Yeah.
So I'm talking about when my opponents play this against me.
Gotcha.
So this doesn't hose Paco, but it definitely is like, well, we had one card that beat us, and that kind of sucked, and now there's another card that beats us. So
yeah.
And one of the strengths of Paco is getting through all the hate because we don't care about hate. But now this card is concerning to me on the Paco front.
Yeah,
it is concerning. All right. Anything else to say about this?
No.
Okay, we'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Snoop, Snoop. All right. So this card is Conspicuous Snoop. For 2 red, it is a Goblin Rogue. For 2, it is a 2/2. You can play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast Goblin spells from the top of your library. And as long as the top card of your library is a Goblin card, Conspicuous Snoop has all activated abilities of that card. So, for those not in the loop on the Snoop, there is some really busted stuff you can do with this card. It's basically a 1 card combo with the card Goblin Recruiter, because Goblin Recruiter allows you to put Snoop on top. When you draw and play Snoop, you can set up the top of your library in any combination of goblins that will really allow you to win the game. The most efficient one I've seen so far involves on top putting a card called Torch Courier. Torch Courier is a 1-drop from, I believe, Guilds of Ravnica, that allows you to sacrifice it to give target creature haste until the end of turn. So you give Conspicuous Snoop haste until the end of turn. Then the card underneath the Torch Courier, or on top of your library now, should be a Kiki Jiki. Then what happens is Kiki Jiki allows you to make copies of any non-legendary creature, right? So because Conspicuous Snoop is a non-legendary, it can copy itself. When you start doing that, you will have infinite tapped Conspicuous Snoops. The last
Yes.
Snoop, you can target the Recruiter to make sure Kiki Jiki is not on top anymore. Then you put a Mog Fanatic on top. Mog Fanatic just allows you to sacrifice itself to ping somebody. So you have infinite tapped Kiki, or you have infinite tapped Snoop copies, and then you stack them all to the Recruiter or the
Yeah.
Fanatic and
Yep.
win the game.
And the interesting there is that there's actually a few options besides Mog Fanatic. So there's a few formats where people are looking to build some Snoopy decks. I think this card's
Yeah,
sick.
there's modern talk for this card. It's pretty crazy. The only problem is that you do have to play the Recruiter and then pass, and I think that's unfortunate. But
Yeah,
you
but
just kind of win.
if you think about it, like it's also just a 2 card combo where you have Snoop and Imperial
Totally.
Recruiter. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, sometimes it's a 1 card combo that requires you like having to go around a turn or just have a cantrip,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's a 2 card combo that just wins the game. So
I actually really like this in a deck where this is one of the main combos, and then you can also play Sneak Hulk, Sneak Attack and Protean Hulk as the other combo, because I think Snoop will allow you to set up secondary Hulk piles in that. So if you run like a really clean outlet, that definitely can beat that.
yeah, and there's actually like a few Kiki piles that have like existed in
Hmm.
the past with Sneak Attack. So
Yeah, yeah,
that seems like very likely to be powerful enough.
yeah, exactly. So
Probably like
exciting.
do you remember the old Najeela Hulk decks? Like the
Yes,
old
yes,
Najeela Hulk decks, like the Bill from
yeah,
the
yeah.
Spectators
Sneak
ones.
Hulk. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's like the kind of list that we'd be
yeah.
seeing.
Yeah, definitely.
The double red does make you want to be pretty deep in red, so
Yeah, yeah. I think the really cool part about this combo is we haven't really had, apart from Godo, an infinite combo in red before that has been efficient enough to be played, right? Like we've had Zealous Kiki, but like no one's playing Zealous Kiki.
it's a quite
Uh,
a bit of mana.
yeah, whereas this one is like at most 5 mana win the game.
Yeah,
So that's pretty efficient, pretty sleek. Obviously, it loses to Curse Totem, but does not lose to Null Rod, which is nice. So there's a lot of benefits to this.
I agree. I think this is sick.
Yeah, I
All
love
right,
that little Gabo.
next one's up. Sabirah, Tulzidi Caravaner. Caravaner?
Now, when Braden showed me this card, I said, "Huh?" He said he wanted to put it on here,
Yeah, so I
but
think it's
let's read it first.
sure.
So it is a 2 mana, or it's a 3 mana 2/3 for
Yeah.
2 and a red. Has haste for 1 generic and colon. Another target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. And for 1 and a red and tap it, you have to discard your hand. But until the end of the turn, whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So, Braden, where do you see this?
I see this in like any decks that are like planning on playing a ton of creatures and are fine like doing discard stuff. I think Najeela is actually probably the deck that like at least can like make this the best. I'm not sure that this is good in Najeela, but in terms of like if you're thinking of decks that just absolutely can abuse this ability, I think Najeela makes a lot of sense.
Right.
They can tutor for it pretty easily, but they really don't need to tutor for it. I think really
in Najeela is just a worse Edric, to be fair.
That's fair. You know what I think it is probably good? It's probably good in Grenzo. You know, the mono red Grenzo deck.
Yeah.
This seems pretty good there. I mean, like, you will draw quite a few cards in that deck with this. The fact that she has haste, I mean, sure, it is like 5 mana. That's quite a bit of mana.
Yeah, but it's still something. Yeah.
Yeah, like, they're drawing a ton of cards off of Grenzo in the first place. This is a Grenzo that you can like play in the 99. This adds like a backup effect, and you can use the effect immediately when you rip it off the top. So I think it's actually pretty good there.
Yeah,
I don't think that deck's very far away from at least being like low tier, but still competitive.
Well, with the addition of Snoop, I think that deck gets a lot better.
Oh, probably. Yeah, I mean, like, there's like quite a few Goblin synergies in that deck, so that would make sense.
Yeah. Sweet.
All right, next one's up. Transmogrify.
I am a fan of this. Anytime a new effect gets added to red, I'm a happy boy.
Yeah, this is a pretty good time for red, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
We've seen some good
Snoop
stuff.
and Transmogrify in one set. We just got Deflecting Swat. Before that, we had Dockside. Like, it's been in Underworld Breach. Like, Red's had it pretty good lately.
I agree.
So let's talk about Transmogrify. It is 3 in a red for a sorcery. You exile target creature. That creature's controller reveals a card from the top of from their library, until they reveal a creature card. That player puts that card on the battlefield and shuffles the rest into their library. So it is Polymorph in red.
Yeah, it exiles. I'm not sure if Polymorph destroyed or exiled it at some point.
Polymorph does destroy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of relevant. You don't get like a destroy effect or whatever. It also means you can't like put it to the bottom, which is what I think they used to do.
Or hit an indestructible creature.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. However, I will say, I think this is actually... It might be a better removal spell in a pinch. And I also think that at 4 mana in red, I think it's actually pretty efficient in these colors, right? One problem I think that this card does have is that we really don't have any cards that are so broken that don't require other creatures, right?
Right.
So like Razaketh is busted. I mean, absolutely disgusting. But you have to play other creatures in your deck so that you actually have the fuel to hit it.
Yeah.
And all the other good stuff is banned. There are cards like Villas.
Yeah.
Villas is very powerful, but you need like a Necropotence in play or some other effect that like makes it worth it to be. It's such a huge cost, especially in red, right? Like it's just it's kind of rough. Maybe in a deck that's like if they print, you know where I could see this, and it would not be good, but this is where I could see it. They print a very powerful green-red infinite mana outlet, like a very powerful green-red infinite mana outlet.
Okay, yeah.
Then you play just Dockside and Temur Sabertooth.
Okay.
And then you lose out on all the acceleration, but you just run a ton of tutors, and you run Transmogrify with the outlet, because the outlet's like let's say it's like a green-red Thrasios or something.
Okay.
Like maybe then it would make sense for you to like play your commander, Transmogrify it, hit the Dockside, and then maybe use a tutor in your hand to go get the other creature and win the game. But even then, like, is that really better than playing Dorks? I mean, if it's
I don't know. Yeah.
Like,
it's just like at that point, why wouldn't you play Divergent Transformations and get both of them?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the problem with Divergent Transformations is like it's just a lot of mana. It requires a lot more setup. So yeah, I don't know. I think polymorph effects are just probably bad in our format. Sadly, they're busted in other formats.
Right.
In Canlander, there's a very popular deck where they cheat in a Platinum Empyrean
Yeah.
and win the game that way.
Mm-hmm.
Just not in our format, it looks like. Which kind of sucks
Yeah.
because they're really fun to play, these strategies. And they have real costs, which is like interesting.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
sadly, as long as Gristlebrand isn't legal, this probably isn't good enough.
Probably not. Yeah.
Or until they print something as good as Gristlebrand and then it gets banned in Commander. I don't see this being good enough. You know what? If they print a creature that's like 15 mana, draw half your deck, I could see this being good enough.
Yeah, fair.
And that could happen. They just printed a card like that that's a sorcery, so you never know. Or if they printed a creature that like said search your library for an instant that costs like 5 or more, cast it for free, and you could get like an ad nauseam or something.
Sure.
Maybe then it'd be good enough. But again, like this card just isn't good enough until we have broken creatures that are like a ridiculous amount of mana and that are good enough that it's worth not playing creatures.
Right. Playing another creature in your deck.
You can't play green, right? And play polymorph, right?
Mm-mm.
I just don't, right? Like, it's just not worth it. So you're probably black, red, maybe blue.
Yeah.
Black, red, blue.
Yeah, I think there's a world where you can do some. I don't know, because even then, I was gonna say you could do some Tide Spout Tyrant stuff, but then Urza just does it more efficiently.
Yeah, and you lose out on Dockside anytime you're in red.
Yeah.
Dockside's busted.
Yeah, it's a good card.
So, all right, I think we talked a little bit too much about this card, but hopefully people enjoyed the dissection. All right, miscast. I think it's pretty obvious.
Easy include, yeah. So this is 1 blue for an instant. Counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 3. It's another 1 mana counter. Like, it's real good.
Yeah, I think
we play Fluster Storm all the time. Like,
yeah,
it's comparable.
Yeah, I think at 1 mana leak is good enough.
Yeah.
Hot take.
It hits sorceries, which Dispel does not, so that's something to note.
Yeah. And I think there's like some concerning things in that like I want to play this against an ad nauseum deck, right? But
just more early protection.
Yeah, but now they just have this too. So
this is really good. So I was talking about the other day in my primer for my my Hermit Kazaru Ukima deck. I was writing about how, because the deck plays so aggressively, there are certain spells that you will play over others, right? So, like, normally I don't like playing Spell Pierce in the deck, but in a deck like that, I enjoy playing Spell Pierce. The same thing here for Miscast, right? If the tempo in these early turns is really important to you, Miscast will favor you.
Yeah. I think this card's, like, sick, right? Like, just format staple, buy your foil copies. Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh boy!
So this is a card that Braden really wants to talk about. This is Tolarian Kraken. It's 4 and 2 blue for a Kraken 4/6. Whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1 generic mana. When you do, you may tap or untap target creature. I think this card is garbage, but Braden, go ahead.
Alright, so here's why this card is not garbage. Okay. Have you ever read of a card called Thrasios?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty popular. Have you ever read a card called Priest of Titania? Pretty popular cards.
Yeah.
These are cards we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't go infinite necessarily, but it does the Paradox Engine thing, you know? Where, like, you're like, oh no, I'm making 5 mana every turn I activate my Thrasios, and I don't whiff. I win. So,
sure.
The deck I really want to try this out in is actually medium green. It's a ridiculous magic card.
Mm-hmm.
It's 6 mana, but I think it does some interesting things. Once you have an Incubation Druid or a Bloom Tender or a Faber Welder or a Priest of Titania out, anytime you draw a card, I mean, it could be your first draw card you draw each turn, it's a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are cards we're playing, again, like, that's a fair list, like Priest of Titania, Bloom Tender, Incubation Druid, Faber Welder. That's 4 cards in our deck. That's, like, not an unreasonable ask to have one of those effects in play. And then making it so every time we draw a card, we get a ritual. And like in the case of like Bloom Tender, it is probably like legitimately a dark ritual making
Hmm.
Sultai colors. That's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's even better because they're triggers that go on the stack, you can even respond to them. So like if you cast like a Time Twister with this in play and you have a Bloom Tender in play, you can go like, all right, Time Twister, pay one, untap my Bloom Tender, use the mana I got from untapping my Bloom Tender to pay to untap my Bloom Tender, use that mana, and now you've made like 12 or 15 mana. So
Hmm.
now let's be honest here, Smothering Tide does that pretty well too without any setup, but that's why I am at least interested in this card.
Hmm.
Smothering Tithe doesn't get turned on by activating Thrasios. You know, like
That's fair.
Smothering Tithe gets activated by forcing our opponents to draw cards, or at least them just playing Magic the way that they would want to play Magic anyway. This
Hmm.
card is enabled by the cards that were already playing your deck. I mean, imagine going to your imagine going to combat with Timna, hitting two of your opponents. You draw two cards, you get two of these triggers, and you make 4 mana or 5 mana with 4 or 6 mana with Bloom Tender. That's pretty powerful. So, I mean, if you have a Timna out, Bloom Tender's probably making 4 mana. So you would have two triggers on the stack. You tap, make Sultai mana, then untap it. Well, you make 4 mana, then use the white, float Sultai mana. Now you would untap Bloom Tender, go to your next thing, tap. Now you're floating double Sultai, and you've made 6 mana, and that's somewhere between like 3 and 1 Thrasios activations, depending on like how far ahead you are. So this card is absolutely a win more card. It's absolutely a card that gets better when your deck's already winning. But however, like it is a 6 mana 4/6, which is like an absolutely absurd body. It means it actually like protects your life total. Um, it it's it's just like pretty. It's pretty good when it does what you want it to do. I'm very excited to test this card. It's going to force me to. I'm actually going to add Keenan to the deck and test this
Oh,
out
okay.
because with Keenan, all of a sudden your Birds of
It gets a lot
Paradises,
better.
your
Yeah.
Llanowar Elves, your any of those effects are all of a sudden mana positive with Tolarian Kraken whenever you draw
Yeah.
a card, and then it gets pretty silly. I think.
Keenan also helps with any freed lines that you're already
Yes. So,
playing.
so then I'd also add Freed from the Real. So
Hmm.
so right now the maybe board for medium green has Freed lines hiding out in
Hmm.
there. And so when I
Yeah.
saw this card, I was thinking, okay, this might be what pushes me over the edge to actually like do some proper testing on Freed lines because this
Right.
does seem insane. I mean, if you have a
Yeah.
Training Grounds in play, this and a Bloom Tender, you're basically guaranteed to win the game, right?
Totally.
Like, and that's like a 3 card combo, and it's pretty bad. But I miss Paradox Engine, so what can I say? Maybe I'm
Maybe
just
this is the. Yeah.
maybe my heart just longs for this bygone era where I could just storm off manually in my mid-range decks.
Yeah, sounds like we're there, bud.
All right, let's go to the next one,
Awesome.
and we're done.
And then it's done. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't think there is one.
Oh yeah. I can't count. Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for part 2 of the M21 release. If you enjoyed this version of our content, please feel free to comment on that. It is a little harder on the production side, but for special episodes like this, when we're talking about cars on the screen, it's definitely something we want to try and focus on.
Thank you for complaining
Um,
about it. A lot of people complained about us not having them, and it pushed us to work harder. So
yeah.
it's a good thing. Thank you. We're trying to like
Yeah.
grow and make our channel higher, better.
Hmm.
If you actually enjoyed this, like please say so. We did this a
Hmm.
similar thing for the Kit Rock episode, and it didn't really get any feedback, so we didn't continue doing it. Then we got a whole bunch more
Yeah.
feedback that we should start doing it again, so we tried it again. Um,
Yeah.
we're trying to grow based off of the feedback we get, so
Yeah.
more feedback is always
Sweet.
good.
Hmm. All right, everybody. We are so happy to have you all. You can be found on Discord, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, all of these wonderful places. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in Discord. We've had a lot of lively conversations lately, and it's been really fun talking to people.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.